or things that the algorithm knows you will like, and the
Yeah.
algorithm knows you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It
it
knows.
knows
Yeah.
everything about you. It knows what you watch. It knows what time you watch stuff. It knows what you like and what you don't like. So the algorithm knows you probably better than you know yourself.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
some
pretty.
some people.
Yeah, especially if,
So
especially yeah,
it's kind
and
of
you know
easy.
what? It's a yeah. You can be really scared by that, or you can go
Just go with it.
yeah and use
That's a
it
can of
right.
worms that
Like yeah, it's a can of worms for sure. But looking from one side, which is the opportunity, is that you're living in a space where the people that you probably want to meet are able to connect with you like almost subconsciously, unconsciously, that there's the internet's trying to connect you,
yeah,
which is actually really amazing.
it is cool. Hey, it is
Yes.
really cool.
Yeah.
You're tuning into the High Performance Path podcast, and I'm your host, Alex. If you want to increase your productivity, enhance your mental performance, hack your sleep, and build a bulletproof body, then you're in the right place. Get ready as we dive into interviews with performance coaches, business owners, and health professionals to find out their daily routines, habits, and movement practices. Alright, let's go. So, why don't you tell the listeners where you're from and what you do? Just quickly, where you're from. How'd
So,
you end up in Newcastle as a Newy local?
so I moved here in June 2018, and I was living in Lismore. I grew up in Lismore. Um, Studied osteopathy there.
That's up near Byron, is
It's
it?
up near Byron,
Yeah,
about 40 minutes
yeah.
inland.
Osteopathy.
Osteopathy, yeah.
Can you explain what that is, or what an
So
osteopath does?
yeah, so we work with pain, mobility, nerve kind of issues, like sciatica and thoracic outlet syndrome, carpal tunnel syndrome. We work with um, headaches, chronic and acute injuries and pain, really. So what we do generally looks like a holistic assessment um, around how your body moves and what's going on cognitively, and your past medical history. And then we'll move through a a little bit more in-depth assessment of different joints, muscles. We're considering all of the person, so nerves, circulation, muscles, joints, lymphatic system, and then looking at the person within the context of their life as well. What do they do? What are their habits? How's this impacting what's going on? And what do they understand about their pain as well? There's different beliefs that can reinforce issues. And do we need to unpack that stuff moving forward? Our intervention is using a lot of hands-on manual therapy, which is quite unique. Our approach is quite unique to us, but uh,
Do you mean it's unique as in it's different than like physio and
yeah,
chiro?
I would say yeah. Yeah, we have a really diverse range of techniques. You could, and also every practitioner is different. Might I just preface this with
Yep.
I think a great practitioner can be physio, osteo, chiro, massage therapist, personal trainer. It's about it's actually more about what's your underlying approach to that person,
Mm.
and do you know when to refer, where your scope of practice ends, and and do you recognize that you might try to maybe you've got a hammer and everything's a nail, like, so are you aware that that may exist? You have to be self-aware as a practitioner as well, so trying to fix the same or different problems with the same like
Method.
intervention. I think it's an open-minded um, practitioner that is a good practitioner.
Cool.
Yeah, and self-aware. So But the interventions we do, like the hands-on stuff, we might be doing active stretching work. It might be passive joint mobilization. Could be trigger point kind of myofascial, similar to massage work. We could be doing joint articulation adjustments. Getting particular joints moving optimally, and just educating along that whole road as well, talking and discussing, getting our patients to tune in with their body and understand what should they be feeling, and what are they feeling? Are they aligned? And um, uh, are we able to build a nice map in your brain of what your body does and how it moves, and where the limitations are? It's all about really empowering the individual in my eyes. And so more on what we do is this exercise intervention where we'll do mobility and basic strength work, just to try and encourage the healing mechanisms in the body to really step in under the right stresses. That's what we're ultimately, osteopaths are trying to create an environment in the body to heal itself, and also to function in a way that is unimpeded. Yeah.
Cool. That's a really in-depth explanation. So thanks for that.
Yeah, that's all right.
Um, how did you find that you had a passion for like human movement, I guess?
Oh, I was always like sporty.
Yeah.
I always loved moving. Like I loved sprinting. Like in my primary school, I was like one of the faster runners, and I loved that. I loved the feeling of just wind going through my hair. I played a lot of different sports. Played some basketball, played some soccer. Like, yeah. There's a spider just
Oh,
crawling around.
didn't we put him in the plant up there before?
We did. We put him in the
He's
plant.
made it back down.
He wants to hang out.
He obviously wants to hang out with us.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was always passionate about sport,
Yeah.
and then as I moved into high school, it kind of turned into PE study and just passion about PE. And I remember one year there was my friend Tim. He really inspired me to really study hard, learning the joints and how they move and all the bones in the body. Maybe not all of them to the level I know now, but
Yeah.
the main bones in the body and muscles in the body as well.
Was he doing PE?
He was doing PE too, yeah. And he got stuck in one year. I remember it. And I was like, oh man, he's my best mate. And I was like, oh well, you know what? I'm gonna get stuck in too. And so I really got passionate about it, and I did super well in that test. And when you get good at something and it just reinforces the pattern, like I'm getting good at it, I start to love it. And then you get better and better and better. And that's just like that cycle. So that just kept going. And I love movement. I love PE. I love the study of the human body. And I love helping people. Yeah. So that's sort of how that started. And it evolved into doing exercise science in my first year of uni, and then moving into osteopathy because I loved the idea of being a clinician. And osteo was the only offered sort of role that or occupation that I could go for that involved the human body, hands-on work, some exercise rehab. And it was that outcome at the end that I really wanted.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that's evolved being here at the Movement Collective now. It continues. I continue to learn. I still feel like I'm at university sometimes because I'm learning so much all the time. That's good. And practically applying stuff as well. So
that's ideal.
It is. It's ideal.
You've got to keep growing and learning, I think.
Yeah.
There's a quote. I think I could be wrong, but I think it's from Einstein. But he is one of the most misquoted people of all time. But there's a quote supposedly from him that goes, once you stop learning, you stop dying.
You start dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's true. Now that could have been someone else, but it could be him. But I like that quote.
Yeah.
And I
think
think you
too.
just have to continually learn and try new things.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you just get stale and
yeah,
stuck in your own ways, and you know that's when you start to. I don't know. I think you should just continue learning.
yeah, yeah. I 100% agree, and I think that's part of the reason I don't know. I feel, yeah. I mean, I want to be productive all the time. It's always learning. You know, I might not be creating something, but I'm creating connections in my brain, if nothing else.
Yeah, I want to talk. Oh, let's dive into that a little bit about
Yeah,
continually learning and being
yeah.
a student. Um, how have you kind of uh, how do you personally make sure that you are in situations where you can keep learning and growing? Um, what I'm what I mean is, for you, does this look like mentorship or courses or reading
Mm, mm,
books?
mm.
Um, how do you kind of go about that?
It's definitely all three of
All of
those.
them.
Yeah. Um, right now I've got two coaches. So one is teaching. I'm going through a movement program, like
Mm.
an internship. Um, and so he's teaching me a lot. Harry Williams from Holistic Movement in Perth.
Yeah.
He's gone through the Edo Portal method.
Yeah. Cool.
For those who are familiar with the movement sort of
Mm.
culture, and he's now sort of creating his own path and teaching others. And so I've signed up with him, and yeah, it's my second phase, and I've seen a huge amount of progress in all of my training, as
Mm.
well as just understanding how the body moves
Mm.
on another level.
Yeah.
So the other coaching I'm doing is with John Marsh,
Mm-hmm.
Access Potential Academy, which is amazing. And if you want to listen to a great podcast as well, another great podcast, he runs the Access Potential podcast.
Yeah. Great podcast.
It's
Shout out, John.
it's phenomenal. Yeah, there's so much great
Mm.
stuff in there. And just who he is, his persona, his calm nature, but just ability to, have the balance of, it's kind of like the masculine feminine approach, like the yin the yang, the raw sort of strength, but then the ability to be soft as well in all elements of his life. Like the guy can do one arm chin ups
Yeah.
and
He's a
like
weapon.
deficit handstand push ups. He's a weapon.
Mm.
That's in the movement space, but just he's also very calm.
Mm.
His presence is around, and he knows how to hold space really, really well. And I appreciate that in a teacher. So definitely coaches, always reading books.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
I think coaches are. That's if you have, if you can afford coaches,
mm,
that's definitely the best way to grow and learn, because you're getting coached by by someone who is a specialist in whatever they're coaching,
mm,
and that's always going to be a quicker way to learn than doing it on your own.
yeah,
Most of the time, paying a coach or like having a mentor is going to be the best approach.
yeah,
Um, so why don't we go backwards from there? The best approach would be that. So that's probably one of the most expensive
yeah,
approaches for learning and growth.
yeah,
One step back, I guess, might be like workshops or courses.
yeah. Workshops and courses. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, gosh, I do.
Do you do a lot of
It's
workshops?
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for workshops, man.
Yeah.
In the best way possible,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many workshops I've done since I've moved down to Newcastle, but it's got to be, I don't know.
Newcastle's a great space
Yeah,
for workshops. There's a lot of people. Um, I yeah, I think workshops are great because there's a lot of them popping up around Newcastle in so many different areas. I think just because of like technology, it's just easy to organize things like that in spaces
yeah,
and target whatever niche. So you can get
yeah,
like just being a part of the algorithm in social media, I guess. You can have And this is outside of your control, I guess, to an extent. But you get things targeted to you based off what the algorithm knows you will like. So you can get things that pop up, workshops around you, or like courses, or things that the algorithm knows you will like, and the algorithm knows you.
Yeah.
But
It knows.
it knows everything about you. It knows what you watch. It knows what time you watch stuff. It knows what you like and what you don't like. So the algorithm knows you probably better than you know yourself.
Yeah,
Well, some people.
Yeah, especially
So
yeah.
it's kind of
And
easy.
you know what? You can be really scared by that, or you can go
Just go with it.
yeah, and use
That's a
it,
can
right?
of worms. That
Like, yeah, it's a can of worms for sure, but looking from one side, which is the opportunity, is that you're living in a space where the people that you probably want to meet are able to connect with you, like almost subconsciously, unconsciously, that the internet's trying to connect you,
yeah,
which is actually really amazing.
it is cool. Hey,
Yes.
it is really cool.
Yeah.
And
That's
like,
it. I found this place, which changed my life, through social media.
exactly, that's an example of
Yeah.
how the algorithm has matched you with something that is a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which then brings me to
I think.
as we
Sorry, can I just say something about? I think it's just about self-awareness, though,
yeah,
and about knowing that.
by having control, but knowing that
Yeah. It comes back to: are you going to respond to life, or are you going to react to life? And if you are going to react and stay in that kind of victimized mindset, or it's a passive kind of mindset where a life's happening to you instead of you're creating your life, that's when it's a problem.
yeah,
You just need to know that when you use this technology, this is what it's going to do. And so having awareness around it, step one. Two, having intent around it. What are you doing it for? Why? Why are you doing it? Because then there's a driving force behind every action you take. And you can guide yourself through this space, which can lead you to places you want to be, or you can let it take you with the current, and it will take you to places maybe you don't want to be. So you need a propeller, and you need I need a sailing analogy, a rudder
to steer.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you'll just get blown around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. I want to dive into technology a little bit later and how that's affecting us as humans.
Yeah.
Like our kind of posture and the way we move and stuff a little bit later. But I want to stay on the kind of personal development and growth thing just for now. So moving back down from courses.
Yeah. Nice, guiding us back on task.
Another way to continually grow and learn is just books or podcasts.
Yeah.
Books are relatively cheap for, like, if you look at the return on investment, a book that might cost $15 can change your life, or it could give you an idea that generates an income that you can live off.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty small.
Yeah. That's if you even buy it. You could just go to the library.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like that kind of, it's kind of on a similar barrier of entry to like YouTube and podcasts. Podcasts are free. I mean, if you're listening to this right now, it's free. That's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because it's such a low barrier of entry for people to listen and learn from, that it's just like there's no excuse. Like, podcasts are free. Go listen to some and just fucking learn, and just pick podcasts that you want to learn about. And there's like, there's podcasts done by, the average person like myself, but then there's podcasts done by professionals and world-class experts in certain fields. And so just, there's really no excuse. It just costs time. I guess it doesn't cost any money, but it just costs time.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at there's a term. I think it's called dead time.
Mm-hmm.
I think Aubrey Marcus mentioned this in his book, Own the Day. Have you read that book?
I haven't, but I've listened to Aubrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where I heard it first. You can fill dead time and you can flip that and make it learning time.
Yeah.
So what dead time is time, like time spent traveling or driving or cleaning or cooking. That's time where you can be listening to a book or a podcast and you can be learning rather than
Yeah.
just sitting, rather than just driving to work in silence. Now, that sometimes is
A
a
good
better
practice
option
too.
anyway.
Yeah.
That can double as a form of meditation, but you can double time like that. Like maybe when you're cleaning or cooking, you can listen to a book or a podcast and you can get through a book in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't have listened to, every time you drive to work, you might just listen to the radio and that might be entertaining, but you can get a book read in 2 or 3 weeks going to and from work. And then that same person might say, oh, I don't have time to read. And they might just listen to the radio on the way to work.
Yeah.
Whereas, well, you can fit in reading
Yeah.
in a different way if you
Yeah.
kind of just, a way like that.
Totally. It's so accessible.
Mm.
I used to, when I was landscaping, I would just listen to podcasts.
Yeah, well, I started, because I work for the council doing civil construction.
Yeah.
I started working doing parks and gardens.
Yeah.
When I was just casual, labour hire. And that's just mowing and whippersnipping all day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just listen to audiobooks doing that. And it was like, it wasn't really, I kind of enjoyed that. Like I'm on my feet and I'm walking. So I'm not sitting down in an office all day, which I want to avoid if possible.
Yeah.
For now anyway, while I'm young and able to do a job that's physical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and
I can be at work earning money and learning. So it's
yes.
like
How good is that
it doubles
combo?
up. It doubles up as
Yeah.
like if you can do a job where you can learn, like maybe you're a delivery driver.
Yeah.
And some people think kind of classify that as like not a premium, like
Yeah.
I don't know how to say this
Yeah, I know
without
what you
offending
mean.
any delivery drivers, but
Yeah.
it's not something
Well,
people
like
strive to
it's
do
one,
and
it's
end
one
up
of
doing.
those. Yeah. Like you can make like kind of what you're saying is you can make what you want out of the job, like, but you don't need really specific training to be a delivery driver, except you need a license.
Yeah.
And you probably, and you need a good record or something.
Yeah. Where I was kind of leading on to with that is that can be like some people, wherever they are in their life, they might leave their job
Mm-hmm.
and maybe start doing another job that
Yeah.
maybe is a job that's not ideal, but it's paying the bills for now.
Yeah.
If you can get a job where you can double it as learning, like it might not
Some
be a
jobs
job
will
that,
have dead time, right?
Yeah.
In them. Yeah.
and you can double that as earning money and learning.
Yeah.
And that might
It's
you might-
awesome, man.
You
It'll
might
change
just be in
yeah.
a part of your life where you just need a job to earn money for now, and then you're eventually going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
And that can be a good job that acts as like a stepping stone. Just a job where you can, not all jobs you can do that, but like mowing lawns or being, I don't know, Uber driver or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be a really good thing to balance that out and learn.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's one of the things I miss about doing landscaping, gardening, lawn mowing, whip snipping. It was just like, okay, sweet, just podcast in.
While we're
let's go.
on the topic of podcasts and books, do you have any recommendations? I know we've spoken about some books and podcasts.
Yeah.
Do you have any that you recommend?
Yeah, I definitely recommend, like I already said, Mastery, obviously, by Robert Greene is a big one. Another big one for me, what do I really, really love? I love The Alchemist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as a story.
Paulo Coelho.
Yeah,
Is it?
Paulo
Paulo?
Coelho or something. I think he's Brazilian. It's different. Different pronunciation or whatever. But yeah,
That's a really good book.
it's
That's the kind of book that I think is good to read in different like parts of your life. Like
yes,
continually revisit it.
yeah, and I have with that one too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
I've only read that the once, but I've only read it earlier this year. So I've only
yeah,
recently read that one.
yeah. I think I've read it. Well, I read it once, and then I've listened to it maybe 5 or 6 times. Um, because there's so many little layers in it,
Yeah.
just little layers, and different parts will resonate with you at different times of your life.
I tell you what, there's a book that I just finished that's kind of similar. It's kind of like a parable. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Have you read that one?
Okay, no, I've seen it and I thought about reading it, but
That's worth a read. That's
okay,
one of the books that I think I'll revisit in a year or two,
yeah,
and I'll probably continue.
yeah,
It's pretty similar. I think I got more out of that than The Alchemist.
okay,
Um, so yeah, I think it's good. Just yeah, a lot of good stuff in there about mindset and personal growth. It's a parable about this guy who is a lawyer
mm,
who lives, he's really talented, does really well, ends up working his way up to the top of this law firm,
mm,
um, has all these expensive things and lives this luxurious life and is kind of like, he's just this hot shot, but then something happens and he becomes, living that lifestyle, he become overweight and kind of unhealthy, and then
mm,
he ended up becoming moody, and he wasn't happy, and he wasn't himself, he wasn't on top of his game anymore,
mm,
and then he had an episode with his health that put him in hospital, and that changed his perspective,
mm,
and he quit his job and moved to Nepal, I think,
mm,
or somewhere around there,
yeah,
and started to learn and just sold everything, sold his Ferrari. That's where the title of the book come from,
yeah,
and just lived a simple life, learning from the monks.
yeah,
And then he comes back like 10 or 15 years later
mm-hmm,
and shows up at one of his colleagues' houses,
mm,
and then the rest of the book is him just kind of
reintegrating.
um, telling what he's learnt, the lessons that
Oh
he's learnt,
yeah,
and kind of stories and stuff.
oh cool.
Um, so yeah, it's good.
That sounds awesome.
It's worth it.
Pretty,
It's not that long either. I listened
yeah,
to it. I listened to it in about 2 weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
love that, man. Once in my life, I was nearly going to become a monk.
Really?
Yeah, I was saving for it
Really?
essentially. Yeah, I was going to go to
But don't
like
you?
Thailand or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. Okay. I kind of thought you would kind of not need any money and just go there and start with and like get rid of all your possessions.
Well, I would just had to get flights.
You had to just get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool. Why?
yeah. That was it. And I wanted to be able to search for the right place.
Yeah.
And so just to be able to sustain myself for
Yeah.
that
Where
time.
Where did you plan to start this journey? Like, where were you going to fly to? Thailand, you
I was
said?
thinking Thailand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking Thailand.
Have you been to Thailand?
I haven't been.
It's
No.
an interesting place. It's worth going. It's actually, I think it's one of the I could be wrong here, but it's one of the countries that let like any nationality in. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have any restrictions off from any countries, so you get a
Oh wow.
lot of international
Yeah.
travelers and
Right.
people. So you get a really broad. I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I heard this. Um, Something like that anyway. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of travelers from all over that go there because, yeah.
Yeah. That's quite interesting actually.
Been a while since
I
I've been
found
to
that with
Thailand.
I found that with India. I went to India.
Yeah,
And it was a lot of people from everywhere,
yeah,
everywhere. So
yeah, cool.
yeah,
All right, let's go. So one step lower than while we're on personal development,
yeah.
the people that you surround yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you
Mm.
can, this is something that people have more control over than they really realize.
Yeah.
The people that you surround yourself with
Hmm.
influence you a lot.
Yeah.
And so you can like there's one of the most common sayings: you are the average of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with.
Yeah.
If you surround yourself with negative people that kind of eat shitty food and smoke and drink, it's likely that you're going to
Mm.
pick up some of those habits.
Yeah.
There's a few different reasons. I mean, partly if you're hanging out with these people, if if the only time you hang out with them is drinking, then you're probably just going to drink as well.
Yeah.
So it's not going to help you if you want to go out less or get to bed early or not smoke. Or if you're trying to quit smoking and they or your friends still smoke, it's going to be so hard to try and quit. So
Totally. It will, yeah.
focus, like surrounding yourself with people who are also into personal growth and into improving. That's a great way to make sure that you, I guess,
You're moving on in the path towards
Yeah.
where you want to be. Yeah, and you make a good point before about people who, or having more control around this than you feel like you give, what most people give credit to. So a big concept comes up for me, which is belonging, right?
Yep.
So that's really what most people are craving. That's really what people want, is they want connection and belonging. And there's kind of this question that comes up or this point that comes up where if you're in a place, say it's your workplace, and you're not loving it, maybe your boss isn't nice and your colleagues aren't really great and they're not living the kind of life that you want to create for yourself, you got to recognize that, and you've got to ask yourself the question: am I willing to be in this workplace amongst these people, or am I willing to trade? Am I willing to trade my time with this community for what I'm getting on the other side of it, which is probably your pay or the reward from the work? And if the answer is yes, but you're still not happy with the community that's surrounding you, then you got to have really, really strong boundaries around that, because you can't always choose who you work with, but you can choose how, like, again, what you're going to do with that, and what you're going to stand for in that place. And it might not mean that people like you so much, but it will mean that the people that you want to be around are there's a shift that happens. It's an energetic shift, happens firstly within, and then I really think that the universe will start moving things around you, or at least you'll start to see things differently, and you'll find a place you need to be if you're willing to stand strong with those changes that you're putting in place, or the boundaries that you're putting in place. And the people that you want to be around will find you. Either they will come out in the people that are there, and they might start a different conversation because you're leading a different life against the grain that's in the workplace. So you might bring out the kind of person you want to be around within the people who were not the kind of people you wanted to be around. Or you'll find that because you'll be putting yourself in different environments, and they'll find you. You'll start to find those people.
Yeah,
and you can
that's really
create a new
interesting.
average. Yeah. I've definitely encountered that in multiple occasions in my life where I really wasn't for the influences that were around me at a particular time, and I pulled myself away from it, and it wasn't easy, and it kind of sucked, and sometimes it was my closest friends, and I was criticized and challenged, and I just trusted that it would get me to the place that I wanted to be, or I would find the people who I wanted to be around who shared the values that I have. And it's just discomfort for a period of time.
Well, it's uncomfortable having like a conversation with someone that you're friends with.
Yeah.
And a lot of people
Totally.
avoid
It's hard.
discomfort
Yeah, it's one of the
in
hardest
life.
things. Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to do things like that.
And
It could be
yeah,
work.
yeah.
You might need to leave that workplace,
Mm-hmm.
but this discomfort that may come is not having another job, or
Right.
so that's a discomfort that people want to avoid. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that might be a conversation that people just don't want to have with their boss or their
Yeah.
workmates or something.
Yeah.
Just avoiding something because it's because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now you did something kind of moving from Lismore to Newcastle. That was a big change for you. That would have been a
Yeah.
big shift in your environment and the people around you, because you didn't grow up here in Newcastle.
Mm.
So that would have been, I guess, this kind of uncomfortableness that we're kind of talking about. Taking a risk and moving somewhere where you don't know many people, and just trusting that I know the people that are around this space that I'm putting myself in
Yeah.
are going to be suited to me and where I want to go. So you just kind of trust that
Yeah.
this is the right decision.
Yeah. Yeah. and be okay with it if it's not as well. Because I would have just done the same thing, which would have been, move forward where I can, and then, yeah, and built that community that I wanted anyway, moving forward. But this is the place that I wanted to be. I did know that, particularly the sort of pronounced figures in this space, like Rod and Jenny and
Did you know John before you moved to
No, I
Newy?
didn't know John. John moved here after I did, actually.
Okay.
I think it was October or November.
Okay.
Yeah, he came. Yeah, and I don't know. I'd seen what the Movement Collective was about, and also Andy, who I met, who I moved in with. Andy and his housemates, incredible people. I guess I really trusted that it was going to be the right space. I trusted myself that it was going to be the right space for me, and it was the change that I wanted at that time to transform myself from 2017, 2018 Damo to 2020 Damo. I do feel the core essence of who I am is the same, but there's so much about me that I feel has changed positively. And that's because I've put myself in this environment where it's a really growth mindset environment. and there's always pros, there's always cons, but there's a trade-off that you've got to be willing to make. And I definitely saw more pros being here than cons. Like, there's hardly any at all. So it was a no-brainer to come down here. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to shift more back towards like technology.
Oh yeah, cool.
We've spoken about this a few times in this episode so far, but we haven't really spoken about movement much, which is what you have a lot of knowledge on. So I'm keen to dive into a bit about movement. But what are some new technologies that we have in our lives now that you can see that are changing us as humans in a way that is causing us to move poorly or cause injury or just be unhealthy in general, I guess?
So
I know. So before you answer that, before this episode, we actually recorded some stuff down in the gym.
Yeah.
And one of the things we recorded was a stretch or a mobility drill that helps with tech neck. So why don't you start with explaining what tech neck is?
Yeah.
I think people
probably gonna know
what it is, but I think it's actually a defined term now. I think it is
Yeah,
actually
okay.
a defined Like it's a
Interesting.
medical condition now, tech neck. Did you know
Okay.
that?
No, I didn't. I didn't actually know that. But I understand. Yeah, I
Mm.
understand kind of what it is and what it means. Sorry.
Can you explain what it is? For
So
people who
yeah,
don't know what
so
it is?
I will. Yeah, so really, it's this idea of spending so much time in a particular posture, typically with rounded shoulders, a flexed spine, and with eyes kind of, either on a screen or down at your phone.
Mm.
So it's this forward head carriage position for prolonged periods of time. Commonly, people are seated too, so they're on a lounge or they're on a chair, and obviously that's got implications as well. But I want to just step back and just put it all in context, because there's a quick assumption to say that this is it's a bad thing, right? Well, too much of anything is a bad thing. Too much water is a bad thing.
You can die.
You can die from too much
drinking
water.
too much water.
Exactly. And so it's all about dosage. That's what it comes down to when it is movement. When we're talking about movement, we're talking about health. It's about what's the right amount for the individual, and are we doing too much? Are we underdoing it? And how can we promote balance and health in the system, or improve capacity to handle a particular amount of whatever it is that we're doing? So, for example, if we're going to be sitting at a desk or in a driver's seat for a prolonged period of time, it might be 8 hours, 10 hours a day. Guilty as a student myself, and what are you going to do to sort of offset that time? So for the first kind of idea is that you need to balance the stimulus. Okay, so if we're going to be in this posture for a really long time, rounded shoulders, forward head carriage, then we should be learning to move in the opposite direction as well.
To offset what's tight and what you've been, the position you've been in, stretch that out and do the reverse so that it doesn't, so your body doesn't stay in that.
Yeah, exactly. And that we give nourishment to the system in the form of movement. What's your movement diet? And also help just decrease sensitivity. By doing the opposite, we allow for greater capacity to handle the actual workload of that action. And it's the same with Ido Portal. He's got this great little saying. It's like movement for the body, stillness for the mind. There's this dichotomy where if we practice one end, we need to have the other side practice as well, and balance is found in the middle of those. And so I will try to do that with movement practice, and we're always practicing movement. Sitting in a chair is practicing sitting in a chair, which is a position, a posture. It's a movement position. And how do we balance that? That's what it really comes down to. And how much are we doing? Yeah. So, yeah, we went over a few different stretches. Were you going to add something? It almost looked like
No, I was just going to start the conversation with tech neck, I guess, because that's a common.
Yeah.
I think it's common. Is it pretty common that people have
Super
tech
common.
neck? Do people not realize that they have that?
Yeah, like
or is there where's the line of where you do have it and don't have it? It's probably hard to define.
It is hard to define. I think it's a hard one to define. I might want to. I think I want to look into this a little bit more, because
cool.
I'm just thinking a little bit like the layers around it, and like what you're implying with what you're saying, and it's just making me think slightly differently about it as I talk.
Well, I want to know your thoughts on standing desks.
Yeah, I like standing desks.
Did you use a standing desk when you were at uni?
I didn't. The reason I like a standing desk is because you have the option.
Yeah.
It's not because you're only no. Sorry, I like sit to stand desks.
Yeah. So what do you offset? Like you'll do maybe half an hour seated and then half an hour standing or something like that.
Yeah, like that's what I would probably do. Might
Yeah.
be an hour. It might be 3 hours, and then it might be 3 hours of the other.
Oh yeah.
Or it might be a day or 3 days of one, and then 2 days of the other, or a week, and and so on, and just see what feels good, kind of thing. It might be just periods of time you want to do different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, tuning into that. I guess I'll just sort of round out my thoughts on this. How good's Nutbush in the background?
Yeah, I don't know if the listeners can hear that or not. They might be able to hear that, but
Pretty funny. There's a healthy change challenging happening down there.
yeah, cool.
So
The Nutbush.
they're just having a golden time.
Sick.
Love it. So I'll round it out. Just thinking about, well, what is tech neck? I guess probably what it is this chronic postural change that either occurs whilst, you've been using technology or even as a child. Because there's this is the new stimulus that's now come into modern society. Since 2007, I watched the introduction of the iPhone.
Yeah.
2007, I watched it yesterday. And
Wait, you watched what exactly?
I watched was Steve Jobs
Yeah.
introduced the iPhone.
Oh, like on stage at the Apple release.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was
2007. Think about how far, like, that's
and he
not really
called
that
it.
long ago.
He called it. I like the way he spoke about it, and looking back 13 years later, it's the foresight of that man is rarely seen in ever. One of a kind of.
Have you read his biography?
No, but I've got it there to read.
Oh yeah, I haven't read it yet either. It's on my list to read. He's done some good speeches and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you listened to the graduation speech?
I have listened to that. Yeah.
That's good.
It was really great. Yeah.
I'll put the link to that.
Oh yeah.
In the show notes for this episode.
Yeah.
I'll link to whatever we speak about. I can't remember if there's been any, like all the books and whatever we speak about. I'll put the links or I'll write them in the show notes for you guys listening if you do want to look after this podcast and look further into whatever we've spoken about.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll just take it back 1 second. So what happens is, we get these families who young kids, they get these technological devices and they spend really long periods of time on them. And what they're doing is they're shaping their bodies that way.
Yeah. Because when you're that age, like young, your body is growing and it will, like our bodies are so adaptable.
Yeah.
We'll adapt to whatever our surrounding is.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, and whatever stimulus we're putting through the body.
Yeah.
So it's these people training their bodies to be great at sitting and watching a screen or laying and watching a screen. The long-term implications of that, we don't really know.
Do you think,
it's like smoking, right?
Yeah.
People used to think it was good for you.
Well, doctors
and
used
then
to
only
prescribe cigarettes for like anxiety,
Well, there you go.
thinking like there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it might help anxiety, but I don't know if they did that.
And the research comes out 30 years later that these are the effects that it's having. And that same sort of, it's probably going to go that way with this as well.
Well, you think since 2007, that's when we started getting smartphones.
Yeah.
That's not that long ago. So we imagine 50 years of this. Like, how old were you in 2007?
14?
Yeah, I think I was about the same age.
Yeah.
So we haven't really seen the effects of these smartphones from kids at 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
Imagine 50 years of that when they're like 45, 50. What's it going to look like?
Yeah, yeah. And have we been able to figure out the balance with technology?
Yeah.
Because that's really, really what it comes down to. It's all, again, it's about dosage.
Yeah.
How are you using it? Are you balancing that out?
Do you think that it's going to change our physiological shape of our spine? Do you think it's able to be passed on?
I don't think the change will happen that quickly.
No.
I don't think it will. But then I'm no expert in
Well, 'cause
that
you
in
know-
that genetics.
Yeah, okay.
Epigenetics. I'm no expert in that.
Right.
Two people who have been living like this for 30 years and then they get together and they have a child. I don't know
Yeah.
what that child's going to be like.
Mm.
I assume that if they were to, if they continue in that environment, they're going to build on the effects that are passed on through the epigenetics, like through the genetics. But if they were to put into a different nurturing environment, I imagine that they would be able to restore the previous state pretty easily.
Well, let's hope that our spines don't change.
Yeah.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. Imagine if we evolved as humans because of this smartphone.
Well, man, it's, there's so much conversation around that. Have you heard about, I think it's Neuralink?
Yeah, the Elon Musks.
Yeah.
Neuralink.
It's like there's another layer to it. So, but that's a different thing. Like that's like just having the internet basically attached to your brain.
Yeah, well, that's crazy, actually.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk talks about us being limited with our upload speed.
Yeah.
What he means by that is communication. Like with our smartphones, we're limited with our two thumbs.
Yes.
And we can only type so fast.
Yeah.
Like I know so many people who can type really fast with two thumbs, but there's not much, you can't get any faster. So we're limited. We're maxed out at our ability to communicate through just two thumbs, which isn't very efficient. Think about how much quicker you can type than with two thumbs. But with a smartphone, just with your two thumbs. Now, the Neuralink, did you watch his second episode on Joe Rogan?
Yes.
His second interview?
Yeah.
That's when he talks about the Neuralink.
Yeah.
And there's a part in there where he was talking about communication will be
totally non-verbal within
it'll be
4 or 5
non-verbal.
years.
So everyone with a Neuralink will be connected wirelessly to something we can't even comprehend right now, like the cloud. Or we'll be connected to something and we'll be able to communicate with thoughts.
Yeah.
That's going to be insane. That'll create like new languages or new think about abbreviations like LOL and like BRB, like be right back. They were advancements in communication from texting because they were abbreviations.
Yeah.
Think about
how we're going to do that with the new technology.
There's going to be more new. There's going to be a new language because that's essentially a new language.
Yeah.
Typing with
it's true,
shortening words from your to two letters you are.
Yeah.
That's shortening, making it faster. That's a new language. Like if someone had never seen any abbreviations of texting and just saw this jumble of letters, you would have no idea what it says, but it makes sense to someone that understands that. That's a new language, I guess, essentially.
Yeah.
So there's going to be new ways to communicate that we won't even we can't even comprehend what
we can't fathom it. Yeah.
But that's crazy.
It is something that is unknown, that's for sure. And unknown is scary sometimes, but also exciting. So you got to look at both sides of that coin.
I think this is a question I asked another guest on the show. How much would you pay to get the Neuralink installed if it was available right now?
What would I pay?
Do you have
I don't fully understand it, so I
Yeah.
can't give you a really good answer.
Yeah. Okay.
But if I was to put it if it meant that, see, the thing is, if it meant this, if I could kind of have access to the internet into my brain, like instantly, search something up and almost kind of visualize a website or something, or know what I need to know, I'd probably put down a $20 million deposit or whatever loan I could get, because the power of
Imagine what you could learn.
Well,
and the skills that you could learn.
20. You got to think about how that's going to transform you.
It's so
20,
it's hard to
if
even
you had access to that much information,
it's hard to comprehend.
you could literally do anything you really wanted to. You could create something that you know that everyone needs, and you could just make it, and then there's your 20 million.
Make
Or
it
you just
back.
sell. Yeah, you made it back. probably made 100 million or billions. Like, it's not. It's unfathomably powerful, and it's the most. It's like what we're doing is putting all the libraries in the world into our brain, plus everything else.
That's pretty crazy. That's going to be there will be it might be a new age, like a revolution.
Yeah, I'd say.
Might be a
I
new
think
period of
Elon.
humans.
Yeah, well, Elon thinks that we're going to be sort of like cyborg, and it's kind of the only way forward.
Well, it's kind of true.
Yeah.
The way he was saying that we basically, if you like, no one leaves home without their phone. A lot of people are dependent on their phones. Like, if you think about someone leaves their phone at home and they leave, they're kind of useless. Like, if you use that phone for maps to navigate, if you use that phone to pay for things, if you use that phone to contact people, you don't remember any phone numbers. Like, who needs to remember phone numbers these days?
Yeah.
We're kind of like dependent on our phones.
Yeah.
So in a way, we're kind of cyborg. Not completely dependent on it,
Yeah.
but we're moving towards that.
And that is what he's referring to. Like, I think what he's saying, I think what he's actually kind of said, and I might be wrong, is that we've almost already started this. It's already has the new age. If we were to look back and pinpoint a time when it occurred, it's within. It's within.
It might be
when
the
the
smartphone
internet
came out.
Yeah, when the internet was in your hand and it was quick. Probably that moment is.
That's cool. There's a lot of good stuff that technology bring, but if we're not careful, it can end pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, again, self-awareness. It's always about practice of understanding the self.
Yeah.
It will never go away.
Yeah.
It will never go away, and it applies to all facets of your life. How you use something. It's not like a gun's not inherently a bad thing, but if you use it to go and shoot people, it becomes used for bad intentions, and it's not, innocent people, whatever. That's a different rabbit hole, but I got stuck on that for a second. But it's just a tool, and how we use that it's the individual that is deciding that. Yeah. So
Let's go back to movement.
Okay.
So I want to ask you about stretching and mobility, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So passive stretching, just like holding a stretch in a position.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of confusion around if this is good or if it's bad or if it's even doing anything, or when it's good, if it's good, when to do it, when not to. So I want to know your thoughts on stretching and also just mobility in general. What's the best way to get mobile?
Yeah, well, it's definitely slightly different for everyone. Some of us are born quite mobile, quite flexible. We just simply have more elastic tissue and tolerance to higher levels of stretch. And this has positive and negatives. There's some of us that are born a little bit more stiff, I guess, or we sort of move into that as we get older.
So some people are born with like hyper flexible joints.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, essentially, yeah. So, for those people, they're probably not going to need much stretching.
No, well, actually, that might be something that may be something worth diving into after.
Yeah.
Mobility versus stability.
Yeah.
And when too much stretching is a bad thing.
Cool. All right.
Kind of the balance of both.
Cool. Yeah. So we were talking before the podcast about mobility, right? And mobility is active range of motion. So your ability to control your joint through space, through its range. Flexibility is when you can stretch or you can move to a point in the joint's movement capacity that is beyond your ability to put it there without an external force.
Yep.
So if you can lift your arms, just above your head, but you can't go any further. But then if you get something and push it back even further, then you're looking at flexibility rather than mobility.
Yep.
There's a lot of benefit in building our ability to separate the gap between those 2 points, creating active range of motion through as much range as we can, and we'll call that mobility. But I feel like I'm slightly going off topic because you spoke about stretching and passive stretching. So it definitely has a place. It's one, it feels really good. That's good for the mind. It is going to have, I think it's about 2 minutes you need to be holding a passive stretch for to start to really get some good change in what the sort of resting tone of the muscle will be, or the tolerable length that the muscle can stretch to. So if you're holding it for any less than 60 to not 60 seconds, you're probably not getting much of an effect as far as long-term stretching or flexibility improvements. When it comes to doing something like loaded stretching, there's a really powerful. This is a really powerful and potent tool to changing the baseline mobility, flexibility of your body, because we're adding this element of contraction and resistance to the tissues that we're lengthening, and this allows us to almost sort of shortcut a bit of the time to gain high levels of range of motion. The body experiences pain when it feels like it's unsafe or needs to be protected. And so when we can have control of, particularly as a person who's stiff naturally, or feels tight, or is really strong and not very flexible, if we can have control of a resistance at the end range, and we gradually try to push that length and have resistance and our ability to pull ourselves out and into that range of motion, we can really start to get big changes through the length of the tissue and what it's willing to tolerate. So, for example, we're working with you on some Jefferson curls,
which
we filmed today.
Yeah.
So that'll be a cool resource for everyone. It's really targeting the spine, intervertebral areas, so working between the vertebrae, and then also targeting the glutes, the hamstrings, and the calves. And so if you haven't seen it before, it's this movement where you might be standing up on a box or something high, and then you'll have a weight in your hand. Start light, so something like 10 kilos, but gymnasts apparently are doing up to their body weight with this movement. But what you do is you roll your body down, you're flexing your spine, so you tuck your chin, you roll your upper back, you roll your mid back, you roll your lower back, and you're holding relatively straight legs this whole time. And so you've stretched out through flexion all of the joints, and then we start to stretch out the hamstrings and calves towards the bottom position. And then we peel back up and we stack back up, and we repeatedly do that motion in an effort to gradually ease into more and more range. And as we get more comfortable with this, we can see huge changes in range of motion over, weeks. Even in a day, you'll see what change is happening to a level where people who can't touch their toes are getting like their knuckles down in one session. And of course, it takes time to create prolonged change, but that's just an example of how, even a couple of sets of this will allow you to achieve a range of motion that your joints haven't seen because they are trusting the range, because you're able to contract in and out of that range. So there's a bit of a summary of kind of loaded mobility, loaded stretching.
Is there a specific time that's good or not good to do this, like around training?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say there's a specific time. Like generally, your dynamic stretches you'll do as a preparation for your sport or whatever your practice is. That is my practice. Like loaded stretching and all that is my training.
Yeah. So
So
it can just be your practice or
yeah,
your workout.
yeah,
It
yeah,
can
yeah,
just be loaded stretching,
yeah, exactly.
which is common in gymnastics or
Yeah,
movement
yeah,
in general, because that is quite time consuming. That can, doing a few sets of that and then another thing that can be long enough to be half of your session.
yeah. It can be, yeah. And yeah, there's just so many benefits to it, and that's why it is my practice. But probably, yeah. I mean, it depends on what you do.
Mm.
Before a session, like getting a little bit of range of motion from these exercises is great if you're going to be doing like your CrossFit sort of style workouts or a sport, such as soccer or basketball, whatever it is. And then your passive stretches can go after. But it often takes away the need for a lot of passive stretches.
Yeah.
Because your baseline capacity to stretch is there. It's like when I was playing soccer, I was never able to really touch my toes. Or it was a real strain. And now as soon as I wake up out of bed, I can put my palms on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's just my normal baseline. Yeah, it's still a stretch for me. But that's how much this stuff can transform your baseline flexibility. So passive stretching has a great role. It's very relaxing. It will change your ability to tolerate load if you're doing, 60, 90, 120 seconds plus.
Yeah.
Loaded stretching is just going to give you a lot of benefit, particularly for the people who are strong and a bit sort of stiff, but also a huge benefit for people that are really flexible and weak. You can bridge that injury risk if you build that strength.
Awesome. So we've just spoken about mobility and stretching.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if a person was to go the opposite way and stretch too much or be too flexible and not have strength in that new range or not enough strength or stability? Tell me a little bit about that and why that's important.
So first of all, if you can have a lot of flexibility and not a huge deal of strength, and you may not ever have a problem. You might be fine. It all comes down to how much capacity do you have, how much strength or range of motion available do you have, and what do you demand of your body. And if the demands are higher than what you have available, the capacity, that's when you'll have a problem. But in saying that, there are particular risks that you will have if you're highly flexible and you don't have the strength to support that.
Is there a type of person that you see, I don't know, just from experience, that that this can be common in? What's coming to mind for me is people that do a lot of yoga and don't do much strength training.
Yeah.
Is that common?
Yeah, it is common. Yeah. So, it's common that yogis are fairly flexible or, fairly flexible and maybe lacking a bit of that strength, depending on, how they practice.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different styles of yoga, and there's some yoga practices that do have strength built into them.
Yeah.
As in the practice. Yoga is so broad.
Yes.
So, like, I'm learning about yoga like at the moment, my partner, she's a yoga teacher, and
Yeah.
there's so much about it that I don't know. Even the philosophy and the mindset of the
Mm.
different practices, it's crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's like
Well, let's
it's like asking, have you ever had beer? It's like, oh well, what kind of beer?
yeah.
It's like it's yeah, there's so many diverse types there.
But let's go back to stability and strength.
Stability, yeah. So yeah, a lot of these a lot of different people, particularly maybe in the yoga space, have a high level of flexibility and a low level of relative strength, and it means that joints, ligaments, tendons can be put at risk. Muscles can be put at risk of some strains or sprains, tissue damage, just because we're pushing so much for flexibility and we're not giving the stability to that area. And this is inherently problematic. Like, if it's just it's just an unbalanced practice essentially.
What can happen?
Yeah,
Like
so
injuries?
yeah,
Like,
definitely. Like one of the most common ones are like a hamstring strain essentially. So like a proximal hamstring strain, or tendinopathy. Just trying to stretch it so far, but not giving the adequate strength, support, and laying down connective tissue by stressing it in a way that's going to promote you know density of the tissue.
mm,
It's just all about trying to the practice tends to, from what I understand, being one practice of, or a particular type of yoga practice, just trying to be as stretchy as possible.
mm,
Yeah. And so issues that can arise, like there's so many different, it can be anything. It's so dependent on the person. It might be a shoulder problem, it might be a low back problem, it might be like a hamstring problem,
mm.
or the knees doesn't feel stable. And it means that we can really just run into pain and issues around this. So I guess I'm very solution focused.
Yeah.
I'm a very like, okay, what do we do about it?
Yep.
And it would be to create a smaller space between your passive and active range,
Yeah.
and build a really strong, robust system that is able to tolerate what you're asking of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm so solution focused, and it's probably one of my flaws as well as one of my strengths.
Yeah.
Where any issue that comes up, I'm thinking, how can we fix this?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So, before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
what are you working towards? Any movement goals? I know you mentioned one at the start.
Yes.
Would that be your number one movement goal?
Oh,
Or do you have any other
I
goals?
have a goal that comes before that goal, which is
Mm.
just like a consistent press to handstand.
Yep.
So that's goal number one at the moment.
What does that look like?
It's just you're standing up, you put your hands down on the ground, and then
Oh, yep.
your legs will lift off the ground through the pressure you're putting through your
Yep.
hands, and
Oh,
then
and then you just end up upside down in handstand.
you
Yeah,
lift,
cool.
into a handstand.
Yeah, I think Luke, who I had on the podcast as well.
Yeah, he just got it recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think he that was his goal.
Yeah,
And then
man. He
after
just
the podcast,
yeah.
he got it
Yeah.
just after we recorded it. So I think by the time the podcast was out, he'd already gotten it. But that's what he said on the podcast that he was working towards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was cool.
Oh man, that's so definitely it's a great move. And I'm working towards a one-arm chin-up,
Oh yeah,
so that would be pretty cool.
that's a long journey.
It's a long journey.
How
Yeah.
long are you estimating that would take?
Oh gosh.
And how long ago did you start?
I don't know how long it's gonna
Don't
take.
know.
It's probably shouldn't take any more than like I want to just give myself a lot of time here. 3 years.
Yeah, okay.
But
I just want to know, well, I want the listeners to know roughly how long a goal like that would take,
yeah,
because I know that gymnastics goals generally take a long time.
yeah.
3 years, roughly, do you think?
I think like I can get it from a bent elbow.
Yep.
I can pull myself up from a bent elbow. But from the passive position,
Yeah,
like just that's a different story. The scapular strength,
yeah,
as well as the stability through all the joints, through the shoulder, through the elbow, through the wrist. If you try to do this stuff too soon, you bang yourself up, man. I've had so many little niggles and injuries just trying to 1 RM stuff.
So that's a big focus on trying to just
You got to prep the
avoid
joints.
injury.
Yeah, you've got to. It's that capacity thing I was speaking about, where my elbows and my shoulders are just not ready for me to try to do that yet. And I'm being patient because I'd rather be able to train than be injured.
Yeah.
And so I just lean on the side of safety with the training. Then,
cool.
Yeah. So that one, yep. And then handstand push-ups.
Yeah, nice.
Have been the
like
other focus.
Freehand.
Freestanding.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you get them now?
So I've done 3 to the floor, in a row.
Nice.
So that's cool, but I want to get the deficit version.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So down on a box, down to the chest, and then back up.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. It's so sick.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, my movement goal, one of them, is just handstand. That's what I'm working on at the moment.
Oh man, it's an awesome goal.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the journey and I'm learning stuff that I didn't know.
Yeah.
We were talking about this just before,
Yeah.
but even something as like, it seems like a simple goal, learning to freehand handstand, just static hold, because I can handstand walk pretty far from kind of CrossFit, because that's come up at the CrossFit Games, and it's in CrossFit workouts. And I feel like that's kind of easier. Some people say the opposite, but I've learnt to handstand walk pretty well. And so because I could do that, I never tried just static. So I kind of missed that fundamental, kind of like pull-ups. If you go straight to kipping pull-ups and then butterfly pull-ups without having that strict pull-up strength and ability, you're missing that key fundamental base that you need.
Yeah.
I feel like I've kind of done that with handstands. I've skipped the base, just learning the position that you need to be in that hollow to hold that. I've kind of skipped a lot of that. So it's good to go back. But I'm learning stuff that I didn't even know I didn't know. And that's the thing about learning things. You don't even know what you don't know yet.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
I think that's why I'm always trying to learn so much about. That's why I'm always doing so many workshops and learning from different teachers, is because there's just so much you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, where do you want to send people after this? You got social media?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So my Instagram is just at @CooperLoop. I think there's 5 underscores following that. Can you believe it? Someone's done 4. Someone's
really?
Yeah.
Someone's done 1, 2, 3, and 4.
4, yeah. So I had to get 5. So funny. So
I'll put that, if anyone's unsure of the spelling or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes. What about your business here that you run?
Yeah. So the Movement Improvement Clinic is a business that I started, and Chris is working with me now. So he's a physio, and we're just working inside the Movement Collective. We've got a couple of offices here, and we use the space to do all our strength and rehab. And it's the best place in the world. So
Movement Improvement Clinic.
Yeah, the Movement Improvement Clinic.
You're on Instagram for that as well.
Yeah. So we're MIC_Newcastle.
Cool. I'll put that in the notes as well.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to wrap things up. So that is all for today.
Perfect. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed this, please take a screenshot and share it. I'd love to see who's listening. And also, please subscribe and give a rating on iTunes. Sending positive vibes to everyone out there. Thanks heaps for listening.